Hey there guys, you're here with Bo and welcome to another video here with me at Cryptocurrency Australia. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Venezuela. So some news came out just a few days ago around the Deutsche Bank confiscating 20 tons of Venezuelan gold after they defaulted on a swap agreement. This comes about as part of a larger issue where Venezuela is essentially being restricted from accessing its gold, both by Deutsche Bank, but also earlier on in the year with the Bank of England also refusing Venezuela to take ownership of their gold. So in today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at these couple of issues, these couple of news articles, the wider issue that seems to be getting worse in Venezuela in terms of its economics, and the outcome Bitcoin usage in Venezuela is having for the citizens there and the people there who are accessing it and benefiting from having a sovereign currency to use. So stick around, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and let's get into the video. So welcome back to the video, guys, and you're here with Bo Stoner from Cryptocurrency Australia. Thanks so much for tuning in. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Venezuela. Now, the first article we're going to take a look at here was published on the 5th of June, a few days ago, and the title is Deutsche Bank confiscates 20 tons of Venezuelan gold after default on swap agreement. Now, this is huge news. I mean, these kind of moves from central banks do not happen often. So we're seeing some major plays happen in Venezuela at the moment in relation to its economy. So reading through the article, Germany's biggest lender, Deutsche Bank, has taken control of 20 tons of gold belonging to Venezuela as collateral after Caracas defaulted on a gold swap agreement valued at US $750 million. The seizure comes as part of a deal clinched between the Bolivarian Republic and the lender as early as 2016. Bloomberg reports. Under the terms of the agreement, Venezuela received a cash loan from Deutsche Bank and put up 20 tons of gold as collateral. The initial deal was set to expire in 2021, but was settled earlier because of missed interest payments, according to unnamed sources close to the issue, as quoted by the agency. Sanctions hit Venezuela has been struggling in recent years with the worst economic crisis in the country's history. The economic decline, accompanied by a sharp recession, hyperinflation, and an increasing deficit of basic goods, has been significantly intensified by political turmoil, exacerbated by constant pressure from the US. The Latin American nation has been subjected to severe US sanctions over the past several years. The White House introduced restrictions on Venezuela's oil exports, the country's key source of income, as well as its gold business, making it difficult to sell mined gold abroad. The US reportedly seized $7 billion in assets belonging to state oil company PDVSA and its US subsidiary Citgo after Washington threw full support behind self-proclaimed interim president Juan Guaido. The latest default on the agreement with the German lender comes months after Venezuela's failure to meet a deadline to buy back gold from international banking giant Citigroup for nearly $1.1 billion. In January, the Bank of England blocked Venezuela's attempts to retrieve $1.2 billion worth of gold stored in its vaults. Caracas holds a portion of its gold reserves in London. So what we're seeing here, guys, is a private bank essentially attempting to seize the collateral used for a loan in the sovereign nation state from which that gold is stored, which is Venezuela, which is pretty incredible. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes here, but unfortunately for Venezuela and ultimately for the people of Venezuela, things just keep getting worse. And we're going to have a look at the next article here, which was actually back at the start of the year from the Bank of England. And the article reads, "The Bank of England refused to return $1.2 billion in gold to Venezuela." Reports. Reading on. Britain rejected Venezuela's request to withdraw $1.2 billion in gold stored in the UK, according to reports. It was enough for the self-declared and US-backed president, Juan Guaido, to support the alleged move. The Bank of England blocked Venezuela's attempts to retrieve $1.2 billion worth of gold stored as the nation's foreign reserves in Britain. sources told Bloomberg on Friday. Now, I might just quickly interject here. Regardless of what is actually going on here, what we need to understand is that many countries, including Australia, have their gold stored in England. So if the Bank of England can refuse a sovereign nation access to its own assets, what does that mean in terms of the risk profile for a nation's own economy and financial situation? So as we're seeing the global financial system start to come under strain, these kind of events are, I think, incredibly important to understand so we know how to better prepare ourselves. And these are, like, as we'll get into as we go through this video, these are the incredible things about Bitcoin. If a nation state held Bitcoin, this can't happen. Another country can't. Well, for example, another country would not hold possession of the private key that is attached to a nation's wallets. But even in saying that, I don't know how countries would. I don't know what mechanisms countries would have in terms of custodianship for their wallets, because I imagine it would be an extremely complex procedure when you're talking about millions and billions of dollars. But regardless, what Bitcoin provides would prevent entities like the Bank of England refusing a country access to its own assets, if that makes sense. Anyway, getting back into the article. According to the media outlet, officials in Caracas have for weeks been trying to withdraw the gold, said with Calixto Ortega, the head of Venezuela's central bank, traveling to London in mid-December to seek access to the nation's assets. The talks were unsuccessful as US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the National Security Advisor to President Donald Trump, John Bolton, pressured their British counterparts to freeze the Venezuelan assets, Bloomberg reported, citing people familiar with the matter. By some estimates, Venezuela holds more than $8 billion in foreign reserves. According to earlier reports, the amount of Venezuelan gold kept in the Bank of England doubled in recent months, growing from 14 to 31 tons. And that's quite interesting. That Venezuelan gold kept in the Bank of England actually doubled. The South American nation has reportedly experienced problems in extracting its own gold from the Bank of England in the past. Bankers in Britain were allegedly concerned that Venezuelan officials would sell the state-owned gold for personal gain. Interesting. The Bank of England, along with press officials for Pompeo and Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, declined to comment. Despite the fact that the story was not confirmed, the alleged move of the British bank was swiftly praised by the self-proclaimed interim president of Venezuela. The process of protecting the assets of Venezuela has begun, Juan Guaido tweeted. We will not allow more abuse and theft of money intended for food, medicine, and the future of our children. And that's where I think, this gets pretty interesting and starts to get into some really scary and grey territory, because while one person may be praising this from one angle, the other side of it is, as I mentioned earlier, here you have a foreign bank, a foreign privately owned bank, refusing a sovereign nation state from accessing its own assets, its own gold. And I know the situation in Venezuela is terrible, and there are a lot of complexities going on at the moment, probably a lot more behind the scenes than what we know. But this in itself, these banks refusing access to a sovereign nation state's own assets, in my opinion, is extremely scary, especially as the world is entering uncertain, economic, turbulent times. Moving on. When we have a look at Venezuela's inflation rate, which we've covered on this channel before, things are still absolutely terrible for Venezuelans. And that's the sad thing about all this, is the people of Venezuela are the ones that are suffering the most. But those that have gotten into Bitcoin would have benefited immeasurably compared to those that have stayed using the Venezuelan bolivar. Now, what we're seeing in front of you is the Venezuelan inflation rate. That is the bolivar, that's their national fiat currency, compared to Australia's inflation rate, which is the Australian dollar, AUD. just for comparison. Now, the black dotted line is Australia's inflation rate, and on the right side of the chart here is the percentages of Australia's inflation rate. So from 0.5 to around 3% is what we have experienced in the last 5 years. The Venezuelan bolivar on the other side is using these percentages here on the left-hand side of the chart. Now, this is no joke. This lower one here is 500,000%. This top one here is 2.5 million%. And this is happening over a period of months. And although the inflation has dropped, it's still over 1,000,000%, which is just, it really boggles the mind. But when we look at local Bitcoin's trading volume for what's happening in Venezuela, and for those of you who may not be familiar with local Bitcoins, it's a peer-to-peer trading platform. So this allows people in Venezuela who hold Bitcoin to act as vendors and to sell Bitcoin to Venezuelans using a variety of different methods. Now, accessing Bitcoin, even through local Bitcoins, is not very easy in Venezuela because there are tight restrictions on using foreign currencies. I believe, in fact, Venezuelans can't even use US dollars. They can't even use foreign currencies. They must use the bolivar. And in addition, if they try to withdraw too much money or transfer too much money out of their bank, I believe their bank accounts are also flagged. So it's extremely difficult. But what we can see here, guys, look at the meteoric rise in Bitcoin. Sorry, I'm going to switch to Bitcoin here. There, I was just looking at the Venezuelan bolivar, but it's much the same here, right? So here we are looking at, I don't know what I'm going. Here we go. Yep. So this is the Venezuelan bolivar trading on Bitcoin, and here we can just see meteoric rise, guys. Meteoric rise, and it's been at all-time highs really since sort of April, May, and heading into June. Why is this? It's because there is a flight to hard money. There is a flight to hard currency to get away from this ridiculous inflation where literally people get paid at the start of the week and have to go and buy things as quickly as they can because the inflation is so bad from day to day that the next day they may not be able to afford a loaf of bread. It is seriously that bad. Now, before we finish, guys, I want to mention this article here. Bitcoin has saved my family. This is from this is an opinion piece from the New York Times from a guy, this Carlos Hernandez, who is actually a Venezuelan economist. Incredible article and gives you amazing insights as to actually what is going on in Venezuela from the perspective of a Venezuelan and how them using Bitcoin has literally saved their family and allowed them to eat. Truly, truly incredible stuff. So guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave me a like. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe and come aboard. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what your opinion of what is going on in Venezuela is at the moment. This is affecting a lot of countries. I'm going to dive into a lot more countries in further videos. We're seeing peak trading volumes in Iran. We're seeing peak trading volumes in Chile. We're seeing peak trading volumes in Argentina. There are so many different countries to go through and look at some of the economics and the political turmoil that's going on at the moment. And that's what I plan on doing to show you guys what Bitcoin is doing for the people that are unfortunately going through this economic depression in their countries. So guys, that's it from me. Bo signing out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.